Ready to go, Tate?
All right, then we will call the meeting to order. And before we go on to our budget hearing, here to say the Pledge of Allegiance first tonight, we have Mason and Landon, who are first graders from Wales Primary. Are you ready, boys?
Okay.
We're ready whenever you are, if everyone can stand.
Stand up. Hi. Ready to go.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good job, guys.
Fantastic job, guys. Nice and loud. All right, and with that, then I will hand it over to John for our budget hearing.
Thank you. So budget hearing, we're going to do a shorter version. Nothing has changed since the last budget work session that we had, which was a month ago. That larger, more thorough presentation is available at our website to look at. So tonight we're going to condense it a little bit and try and get through it because nothing really has changed. Again, we'll go through the vision, mission, no changes there. I won't go through that again. Considerations. Again, exercising care and good judgment, managing your resources with which we are entrusted. So that's always important for us. Budget philosophy. Protect instructional programs against state aid and tax levy fluctuations. The only thing that changed on this was I changed the one word. It was state aid variances, and we're looking long-term state aid variances because we do have federal money now supporting things to some extent at the state level in different ways. We're concerned with what happens when that federal money ends in 2-3 years down the road, and making sure that the state does support education beyond that. And of course, we watch the consumer price index because that drives the allowable tax levy increase. We look at state mandates that could change our expenses in different ways, and just a general philosophy behind state aid and how it's distributed throughout New York. The budget we're presenting tonight, and we presented in the past, last month, supporting the same staff levels as this year, going forward into next year. Supporting student support services, athletics, music, extracurricular, student resource officer, keeping class sizes where they currently are, all the things that we are used to and we appreciate in the district, and we're going to keep all those things going into next year. So I'll review revenues, the tax cap calculation, look at expenses, and review the propositions. The tax levy calculation is, again, just we plug our numbers into this every year. It considers CPI, it considers different growth factors, certain exemptions apply. At the bottom of the calculation, you see our allowable limit is 1.96% on the levy, which means for that we need a simple majority approval. If we chose to go above that 1.96, we would need a supermajority vote, but we are going to go with the calculated limit. Here's just showing the proposed levy increase for next year relative to the past 5-6 years. We average about 2.5, it seems, on average, and we'll be a little lower than that next year. This just shows the different townships that we have, 6 different townships, and we estimate it would roughly be about 1.96% increase on the tax rate for next year. But that, of course, will change based on property values and equalization rates and things like that.
So just jumping back to the last one, I just want everyone to be clear, when we look at it right now and you see everyone's balanced at 1.96, that's our estimates. It will definitely change because the equalization rates will change as we get closer and closer. I know it's down below,
Yep.
but I just want to,
Yep.
You said it, I want to say it. It's recorded twice.
It will change.
You know, and people over the years have seen how it changes. So hopefully you're familiar with that as to where you are.
Yep.
You know,
I just interrupt, I'm so sorry. Usually on the live stream, on the website, we can see the presentation. You can't see it right now. We can see the meeting. We're not seeing the slides.
You mean on the Zoom?
On the website, it's
Yeah.
not showing the slides.
Tate, can you get the
Should be on that one.
website, the slides up on the website? Thank you.
People
know,
can see
Doug,
what it's like.
What I was going to say too, concerning the tax increases over time, if memory serves me right, I believe every single year since I've been on the board, the actual tax increase has been far lower than what our proposed tax increase was for at least going back to the 2015-16, but I believe it's been pretty much every year.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah,
next
he's gonna
slide
have that
does
right
show
here
that.
on this slide to show
Yep.
that.
You're correct.
Yeah, because it's an estimate, we're conservative. John?
And what this slide shows is that we typically do come in lower because especially currently in the last year, property values have increased so much. Equalization rates have changed to reflect higher property values. And when you have more property value to spread the same levy across, the overall tax rate's going to look smaller. Doesn't mean everybody's tax bill is going down. It's saying the tax rate per thousand is going down because property values are going up so much. So that is correct. We started 5 years ago at $16 per thousand, and right now last year we were $13.83 per thousand. When you equalize all the different townships and put them on equal footing. So again, yes, but everyone's going to see different effects based on their own individual property and different changes in their township. The equalization rates in each township change every year, and we don't have control over that, so we just warn people with that. State aid, back in January when the governor put out his executive budget, he did have state aid decreases with foundation aid, with different aid categories. It was going backwards. It was a negative number. We're glad to see when the budget was finally passed in April that we have an increase to foundation aid and different expense-based aid categories. So that really turned around things for us and helped quite a bit. Also included, I'm going to mention UPK. There was an allocation for our school for UPK, and that's great news. We have been trying for, I don't know how many, 5-10 years of every year asking, are we eligible? Can we become eligible for UPK funding? And we were always told that we weren't in already, that there's no new allocations available. So we were pleasantly surprised to see this allocation. But again, it's not part of the general fund budget. We keep this in a separate special revenue fund, but it's part of our state aid package. I just want to make people aware of it. Mayor Joe?
So currently, we're in a fact-finding, looking at the state regs and the rules and regulations that go with UPK. With that amount, we're figuring roughly 35, 36 students full-time. But what we've done so far is a part of the measure requires that we work with agencies within our districts, so we've contacted them to see how we could partner with them, and that we're planning on meeting later on this week to begin firming up our plans.
Okay, thanks.
Quick question, how long is the funding commitment for UPK?
We want to believe that it's every year, this amount is what we believe. They're still putting out all the details of what that is, but every district that currently had a UPK program would get about this much money every year to support that. So we expect it to be every year allocated.
Okay, because I know we've had a lot of programs in the past where it was, one and done, and we gear up, we, have the programs for 1 year, and then we have no funding for the programs for subsequent years.
Now,
So
this is part of a bigger push for full-time, full-day UPK across the state, so we really believe it's going to be with us every year.
And they will keep that funding source separated from the rest of our aids?
Yes.
Yeah, and when we say yes, that's always based on currently. And like you said, you gear up and the cost of gearing up. That's why Mary Jo's been, as she mentioned, looking to partner with other local agencies, because if they're already geared up providing it, then that can step in and do well as a bridge for what we're going to do. Or we stay partnering with them.
So when you look at our total revenues, one of the bigger dips you see is our use of reserves, and that's only because this year we allocated about $90,000 of our technology reserve, and that was the last amount of that money that we had available, so we use that to support this year's budget. We won't have that next year. That's why you see a decrease in use of reserves for next year. In other sources, you see a decrease too, and that's reflective of our decision to not take student technology insurance payments from students. So you'll see a decrease in other sources of revenue because of that. Federal funding did come into play though this year. So there was a $1.9 trillion American Rescue Plan, and then there's also the Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief, which they call ESSER. Specific focus of these funds is on addressing learning loss due to the pandemic. So we do expect that students are going to need additional services to bring them back up to where they were pre-COVID. And we're working on plans right now to come up with how we're going to do that. So this funding is really meant to not be long-term. It's meant to be programs and things that you can do short-term to bring students back up to speed. And you have about 3 years or 4 years to use these funds.
And if I remember right, back on the last slide, if people were to look at state formula / federal stimulus, that we're using some, we already have plans for some of it in there for learning loss next year. And under superintendent's report, Dr. Dudek will be talking about summer school, where we've expanded that to use money, which would be some more additional money out of this plan. It wouldn't be that part in the revenue, just so everyone's clear of that, because we want to keep reporting to the board of what we're doing with it and how much that cost is, so you can see where it's being spent and how.
So again, this is one-time funding. We'll have multi-year planning to kind of make sure that we maintain these services for the next 2, 3, even 4 years possibly. On the expense side, there's some couple things that impacted our planning. Mandated compensatory services and special education, not meaning we're getting additional expense areas, but meaning that things that we thought were going to be done at the end of this year, we are going to have to extend services and go into next year with those with particular students. So it is something that we had to consider in our budget and our planning in special education for next year. And then the additional loss of learning services due to COVID, the federal funds, we are required to spend at least 20% of those funds to address specific learning loss due to COVID. So we have to consider that when we build our budget. The 20% of the federal funds that we're allocated, we will have to spend at least 20% of that for learning loss due to COVID specifically. There are many other categories that they're outlining that you could use for, even get down to air purification and heating, ventilation, supplies, PPE, masks, all the different supplies you need, but they make sure that you have to spend at least 20% of that on, specifically on learning loss services.
Is 20% of how much?
The, I think it's
1.9.
1.7. What was it, 1.9?
Yeah, 1.9 million. And those guidelines, we just got yesterday, the application that came out for this funding, so we're learning, as we go, all different categories that are going to allow us to spend that money on. So we're starting the application process, at least for the ESSER funding. That one was just released. The American Recovery Plan, that one we do not have the instructions on yet, so we're waiting for that.
Right. So, and one question I have with the 20% is, if we spend 20% the first year on learning loss, do we still have to spend 20% on learning loss in the next 2 years? Or is it 20% each year of what you spend has to be on learning loss? So that's a question we don't have answered yet. I'm pretty sure a majority of what we're going to be doing is going to be learning loss, so I know it'll be more than 20% for what it's worth. So yeah, we'll make that. The other piece this morning, because today's Tuesday, I was talking to the administrative cabinet about, is we're looking at further supports for social emotional learning, like another social worker, guidance counselor, for as these students come back for whatever might have happened. So they're looking at what their needs of their buildings are right now for that. And I know Mary Jo is going to talk Is you talking today? No, but we're still working on some other trainings for teachers for when she talks about her summer programs and training, so there'll be things for that too. That'll probably be at the next board meeting.
Also included in the budget is a $100,000 capital outlay project, and we're going to use that to update, refurbish the intermediate school cafeteria. Primarily, we're going to work on the firewall and just making sure that's up to code. But if we can use money for some other refurbishments in that cafeteria, we will do that as well. And that's for the summer of 2022. One of our expenses we always look at is retirement expenses, and we see a smaller increase on the TRS system of only about 2.8%, which is good. The employee retirement system, which is all the non-teaching staff, is about 11% average over the different tiers that they could be in, but that's a lot fewer employees, so overall not a bad year for the retirement expenses.
John, any explanation why it's such a large increase for the ERS as opposed to TRS? I mean, my understanding, they're both, linked to the funding of each plan and the performance of the market. And I would think that, given that, that'd be a little closer.
They don't have explanations really. No, I don't know what their performance in the stock market is compared to what TRS is doing. They must not be doing as well that way. But you can see the tiers. Tier 3 and 4 is a more, what they call a richer plan. Mm-hmm. So that's why that's probably going up more, because that's a more expense. And then the Tier 6, which is not as richer and requires more employee contributions, that one's not going up as much. So I think that says something about how they're balancing things, I guess.
Okay.
Health insurance, we're in the third year of the self-insured plan. And we are budgeting an increase in that area of about 6%, which is pretty consistent with the last 2 or 3 years that we've had. So in our expense areas, really, that's the bigger areas. It's been for many years is the employee benefits, getting a 6% increase. But overall, our budget, we're looking at a 2.3% increase over this year's spending. There'll be 2 propositions next week on Tuesday. One is the general fund budget, which I just went over. And Proposition 2 is our typical replacement vehicle plan, which is for 3 full-size diesel buses and for 2 30-passenger cutaway buses, which are the smaller versions. And that's a not-to-exceed expense of $511,351, and we'd issue a bond to pay for that. There are 2 board seats open. Mr. Haberl's seat has 3 candidates. Mr. Lowry's seat has 1 candidate because 1 dropped out. And as of today, it was a deadline for any new candidates, and we don't have any new ones, so we still have 1 person running for the Mr. Lowry seat. So that concludes the budget hearing. The budget vote is next week, Tuesday at 7:30 a.m. to 9 p.m. in the intermediate gym. Any other questions? Thank you.
We do, typically, I think we start at 7, so I'm imagining that the student report from the middle school, they're probably told to be here at 7. So before we do that, tying in with the budget and everything, I was going to talk about it in my report, but I'll just take the 10 minutes now and tie it right in with this. We will have, for people coming in to vote, we will have COVID protocols. So they will need to wear a mask. We're going to have a greeter at the door to greet them to make sure they know where they're going. We're going to watch the number of people that are in there. We are going to be sterilizing the pens after they use them. There will be shields for the people who are checking people in to make sure that, and when I say shields, the plastic will be up there. And if you forgive me, I keep looking at Cindy to make sure I'm hitting everything I'm supposed to hit. But there's a list of requirements by New York State, and we will be filing every single one of those while we're in here. There might be a time if we get a lot of people coming in to vote where we might have to have a few people wait outside, so there's a capacity limit, which is great because it'll be great weather, I hope, knock on wood, and so it'll be nice waiting out there. If someone comes in and does have signs or symptoms, we will have a separate location of how they can fill out a ballot and still vote, so they won't be excluded. It's just they'll have to do that somewhere else where they're not mixed in. But please, 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 if you do have signs or symptoms, call us, let us know ahead of time so we can get this to you, so you don't have to come through a line or wait with a group of people and you can stay separate. We definitely want your vote. It's very, very important, but we also want to make sure everyone's safe and we follow all the protocols.
Okay, so if I have a fever and I don't feel good, but I really want to vote and I don't have an absentee ballot, I call 652-3000,
Yes.
press the,
I would do
Number for-
extension 1001. Cindy won't be there. She'll be
1001.
down at the vote, but someone else will pick it up in the office.
okay, and then what happens?
Go, do you have a mic? Yeah. So they will drive here, we'll take a ballot out to them, hand it to them, they'll fill it out, they'll seal it, we won't know who it is, and we'll bring it in and put it with the absentee ballots.
Awesome, so the ballot will be delivered to your car, you don't have to get out, you don't
Don't-
have to walk in,
Correct.
you can fill it out privately,
Privately,
and it will be sealed and
Sealed.
brought back into the building.
yes. Sealed by yourself, too. We're not sealing it, you're sealing
Sealed
it.
by yourself, and you can watch the person walk into the building with it.
Yep,
And it will be counted just like every other vote.
absolutely,
Awesome.
absolutely.
And there will be someone at that extension even beyond the school day, because the poll is open till
9:30.
9:30.
So we will have,
Till 9.
till 9, have that time wrong. So we will have to take that into consideration to make sure that's watched.
Okay.
Yep, good point. We had not thought of that one, because
Yeah, that's a good,
so thank you. Yep,
and when polls are open, 7:30 till 9.
7:30 to 9. And actually, Tate's here, so make a note to have Matt come down and see me tomorrow, because I'm pretty sure with our phones, we could actually probably have that right down in the voting area, because how the phones transfer and everything, I think we can do that, so that would work out very well.
Did you want to remind them about handicap accessibility?
Oh, and remember, there's handicap accessibility, look for the signs, but in essence, when you get to the main campus, drive under the bridge. When you go under the bridge, make a right-hand turn, and as you go straight, you'll see the ramp for coming into the voting area. And by ramp, I mean park your car and walk up the ramp. It's not a car ramp. Well, I wasn't clear. I wasn't clear.
Please don't make it a car.
Please don't. It's too narrow.
Skateboarding.
Skateboarding. Is there anything else with COVID or the vote that I could think of? Cindy, John, for protocols or anything? Nope, and just be patient and give each other space, respect each other's space. It's still currently 6 feet. I know in the news, there's a lot of talk of changes. People are looking for changes come the 19th of this month, but the vote's on the 18th, and we have to follow what the state directs us to. I think that's a good word to use. For all this, and that's what we'll follow to be safe. If at any reason you feel there's anything, I will be there. I'll probably, myself, Dr. Dudek, Mr. Walski, will probably be the greeters that are there, just in case anyone has different views of anything. I think we'd be the best people. All right, I guess that's all I have then to add into this little section, because nothing else would fit with the budget that I was going to report on. All right, Sharon, I'll turn it over to you if you want to go back to the regular meeting and start with that.
Is it okay to start before 7?
Yeah, because actually on this agenda, the regular meeting says immediately following the budget hearing, because we don't know of how many questions that are there. And probably Avery will jump right in here when we need her. Because I see her I just see she just showed up.
We've got two visitors from the middle school today. Well, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Yes, you can. Okay. All right, we will call our regular meeting to order. We'd like to welcome all who've come to observe the meeting of the Iroquois Central School District's Board of Education. There are 2 periods of recognition of guests listed on the meeting agenda. The first is for comments regarding agenda items. The second is for topics not on the agenda. Speakers may offer comments related to school operations and programs, but the board cannot hear personnel complaints against any individual associated with the school system. Please address these concerns to the appropriate administrator. If you wish to be recognized, please fill out the appropriate form and turn it into the district clerk. As per policy 1514, public participation at board meetings, public comment is limited to 15 minutes total, unless the board suspends this limit. Each person is given up to 3 minutes in which to address the board. Additionally, no more than 3 people may speak on a single topic unless the board also waives this limitation. This is a meeting held in public rather than a public meeting, which means that we will not be engaging in a dialogue with members of the community this evening. District personnel will follow up with you regarding your concerns. Rest assured that we are listening carefully and take seriously what you have to say. Please demonstrate respect by speaking to the issues, sharing ideas and opinions, but not engaging in personal attacks. The board appreciates your willingness to share your concerns and celebrations. Please be advised that this meeting is being streamed live and the recording will be posted on the Iroquois website. And the next item on our agenda was the Pledge of Allegiance, but we had our friends Mason and Landon from Wales Primary join us at the beginning of our budget hearing, and they did a fantastic job representing their school. And we have, next item, we have our student report. And I believe both of our student reporters are here. We have Lola and Avery joining us from 8th grade at our middle school tonight. So welcome. And we will turn it over to you.
Perfect. If you want to start, Avery.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Regarding coming back to school, there is double the amount of students coming into the building at once, which would result in more students coming for student drop-off. Student drop-off has been going good with no traffic jams. Our staff has been directing traffic into the right direction. Everything has been going great. Recently, Iroquois students from kindergarten to 8th grade are welcomed back to 100% in-person learning. Many students have been saying that the change has been more beneficial for their learning. Many kids find it much easier to focus and understand what they are being taught. With the number of students increasing, students are now able to eat in the auditorium or the cafeteria. Although there is no tables in the auditorium, many students enjoy eating in the auditorium. Also, with there being a projector in there, movies or music can be played during the lunch period. Fall sports P has recently ended and spring sports have begun. I played JV soccer in the fall and I play lacrosse right now. Personally, I and many other athletes feel very safe playing sports with all the adjustments that have been made. I am beyond grateful that I am able to play sports this year with the safety precautions that have been put in place. EDC released new guidelines saying that it is now safe to reduce the boundary between people from 6 to 3 feet. And schools can eliminate glass shields that the students used to carry from class to class. With these new guidelines, Iroquois made sure to benefit from this in a safe way, including giving an option for students to continue using shields if they choose. With this new spacing rule, many students can socialize more with their classmates, but also in a safe way by wearing their mask over their mouth and nose and keeping that 3 feet distance. SEL Live has been advancing greatly over the past couple of weeks with new principal appearances which happened last week. The students were greatly amused with Mr. O'Brien being pied in the face. Student appearances were also going to be coming up on new episodes as well. In a typical and normal year, 8th grade students have a ceremony and day called Moving Up Day. This day honors the 8th grade students of Iroquois for moving on to high school. But we all know this has not been a very normal year. Iroquois staff members have been working very hard to think of a way that 8th graders can still have their special day during these times. Recently, Iroquois staff came up with the perfect way to still have this day safely. Iroquois Middle School is going to replace the normal Darien Lake field trip with an activity day just for the 8th graders. The ceremony will be live broadcasted for all family members to be able to watch. All students and teachers will attend in person. 8th grade students will each receive their class t-shirt and gift bags from the Middle School Parent Association. After the ceremony, parents can come pick up their child along with take pictures in a closed-off area in the parking lot outside. or students can take the bus home if they choose. A letter was sent out to parents today regarding this information.
When students were able to come back to school every day in person, many people have realized how different a regular in-person school is for 5 days a week. Personally, I learn a lot better when I am in person versus when virtual learning. I am so thankful that we have been able to make this happen with the adjustments that have been created.
I wanted to say thank you for this amazing opportunity. To be able to represent my classmates and their opinions on what is going on in our middle school is a great honor.
Thank you so much for this opportunity to talk here today. Not many students get to experience this. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Thank you, girls. Great job.
Great job, girls. There's nothing like hearing it from you guys, really. There's nothing like it. We can hear it from teachers and administrators, but just to hear the adjustments that have been made and what it feels like for you guys is really, it's a special part of our meeting. We're really glad you could join us, and you did a fantastic job, so thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I do have a question if you guys don't want to run away quick.
Yeah.
I never experienced fall sports turning into spring sports because obviously there's a winter in there. How was that for you guys? I mean, how did that feel? Was it a nice transition? Just out of curiosity, because at my level, sometimes they talk about moving certain sports from one season to the next. So I'm just kind of curious how that was.
For me, I think it was almost honestly better for me. Because then when the sports got moved around to different seasons almost, certain people can play more sports now that it got moved from when it was originally supposed to happen. So I think it was a great change.
Yeah, I usually play field hockey in the fall, but since volleyball wasn't in the original time, I was able to also play volleyball. So instead of playing my 3 normal sports, I was able to try volleyball out to see if I liked it. So I think it was a nice change and it went pretty smoothly.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We also want to let you know that you are welcome to stay for the rest of the meeting, but we're sure that you have lots of homework and other things that you need to do. So we're not going to be offended if you log off.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Esslinger.
Thank you. Great job, girls. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Good night.
Goodbye.
Bye. And that brings us to our board discussion and news worth sharing. A couple things that we need to talk about and tonight, and then I'm sure lots of other people have things to share. The first one is our strategic planning is in full swing. Our work with our PLC consultants has continued every other week. Just kind of an update, we are at the point where we are seeking more community input on some items. To date, we've had the survey, we've had our core committee of 40 members working. We've had focus groups that we heard a lot of great feedback about, and a lot of participation in that. As another way for people to kind of pop in and give some input. Another one that's coming up will be at our budget vote. Typically, we have an exit survey. This year, the exit survey is being kind of replaced with the strategic planning input survey. We have some draft versions of mission statements and core beliefs that the core team has been working on, and people will have the opportunity to kind of read those, see what they think of them, offer a little bit of feedback, suggestions, comments, and that'll go right back to the core team to use in the fine tuning of those things. So that's another great way for people to have input into that process. We're moving into the focus group, the task force time. I can't know my words. Task force is a commitment of about five meetings, we're estimating. We have come up with a working list of charges that have been identified based on all the sources of input we've had. Areas that we want to look at, those are communication, facilities, and student experience. Each of those is kind of a wide umbrella. The core teams job with the task forces will be to specifically pinpoint a little bit more specifically what it was that came in surveys and in all of the areas that we've gotten input from. And task force will take that and delve deeper into it, come up with suggestions, come up with charges for what we're going to be working on in our district. Chuck, Michelle, is there anything else you want to add about our strategic planning?
No, I was just going to say, I think you pretty much covered everything. A lot of the more detailed work will take place with the task forces. So I would really encourage our parents, our community members, our students, if time permits for you, to become involved and join one of the task forces.
Yeah, that's a great point. I just ask the board members to look at this included sheet in your packet and see if it looks good. If you have any suggestions before we change it, and it's going to be handed out at the budget, and we're going to ask people to just review it and fill it out, and then express any interest in a task force. So
Yeah, and actually
it's here for you guys to look at to see what you think.
Yeah, so Sharon, could you click your mic up one, because you're breaking in and out a little bit. I think your mics might not be picking your voice up. And I was actually going to talk about that. I was looking at my notes on under budget vote. That was one of the things I was going to have you guys actually do tonight, is look at it, check it off. So I think it's a great idea. Pull it out right now, take a look at it. Is there anything, we'll give you a second to read through it. Is there anything on this sheet you'd like changed? You know, I mean, we have a week. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be done tonight, but we do want to start printing them and stuff. So we'll give you a second. And while they're looking at it, I'll speak to the public and just say, if you look through this, you say, ooh, this is a lot for me to read. The most important thing is go to the back, look at the task force if you want to be part of it, but everything on it's important for you to read, the beliefs, the visions, and really it should only take you a couple minutes to get through it, not even that long. So to the public, please take the time. You've always taken the time for the exit survey, and as you've seen over the history at our district planning conference, the board reads every single comment, they look at every single thing that's put down, and they actually discuss of what they can do to make improvements in the different areas.
That's why this is board discussion.
Yep.
So will this be on the website before they see it at the budget vote?
We had not thought of doing that.
Huh?
Yeah, we had not, we can do that. We had not,
Well,
I had not thought of it.
Well, my only question is, because people sometimes will take a look at it and they want to give more thought, so I would do one of two things: put it out there ahead of time so they know what's going to be part of the exit survey, so they could put their thoughts down if you want it. And then at the bottom, okay, you could have, or if you want to mail this in, all right, and they would put it in their own envelope, pay with their own stamp, all right, but give them the address where it would go to, you know, Iroquois Central Schools Strategic Planning Committee, and give them a deadline date that you would want it by, so that you're not waiting into August for these to come in. But so there's two ways. They can fill it out right then and there, or they could take it home if they really wanted to, you know, give a little bit more thought to it and get it to you by a certain date.
Yeah, so we'll really have to look at that turnaround date, because we're looking to review this, have it all in, compiled by June 1st. So we could be looking at this at the core team at the June meeting. So with the mail and taking a few days, we would probably need it mailed very quickly. I don't want to even take a guess. I'll have to look at a calendar, but I think we can accomplish that, especially with COVID. I think that's a great idea to put it on. Cindy's nodding her head positive, so we should be all set to do that. We can work on that tomorrow.
The only minor tweak that I would suggest is maybe we can get a little creative with the formatting and size of the font to put the contact information on a separate page, just in case they don't want their feedback to be attached to their name, if that makes sense. Like they might want to be in, like those two things to be separate. Does that make sense? I don't know if I'm being.
I get what you mean. You want,
Survey card is anonymous.
yep.
You can volunteer.
Do you want the task
That's
force
a
on a
really good
separate
idea.
sheet of paper?
Plus, it would be nice to have the feedback on just the front. If we can, we should be able to do that, right?
Yep, Cindy says perfect.
And Doug, you could make an announcement, right, that we were offering this on your weekly updates?
Yes, I can do that in my Monday message.
And then where to find it and how to do it?
Where to find it, hopefully the directions there will tell them how to do it. I only have 3 minutes, and there's a few other things I always have to get accomplished.
Okay.
Any other feedback on it? All right. So if you do look at it tonight, tomorrow, my guess is probably sooner than later, we'll have that up because we'll have it up before the vote, simply because during that day, we're a little bit busy. Thank you.
I'm getting a new headset, sorry.
End of the day tomorrow, okay with everyone for reviewing this?
Yes.
Yep, there you go. Okay, we'll have it up by Thursday. Thank you. We're still in more discussion. Sorry, I kind of jumped in there a little bit, but it was a great opportunity that presented itself. Thank you.
You know what, in the part where it says belief statements, please take a moment to review the following proposed ICSD belief statements. Do you feel these accurately represent values and beliefs of ICSD? Are we talking about the we believe ones? Then probably if we have on the line that says yes, no, like you're asking a question, do you feel these accurately represent the values and beliefs of ICSD? But then you just give them 10 questions and no place to respond.
It's actually on the back with comments,
Oh.
suggestions, and input.
I kind of like the idea of having a yes and no after each question, though, because then you can say, yes, this one, but no, not that one. You know, just
I think we talked about doing something similar to the strongly agree, neutral, disagree, like that. I forgot what they call that. A Likert scale? Yeah. So
It might take a while, but.
maybe you could mention it by the question that you've been so people, I'm sure everyone else is getting the same question, where do we respond?
yeah, I think if we change this font and the layout, you could probably get a lot more on this front page. And then use the Likert scale on the we believe statements also.
On every single one of them?
Hmm?
My
You
question
think
is,
so?
are you talking each and,
Yeah.
I think we can, and why I think we can is because if we do it, because we're going to put the people being interested on a separate sheet of paper, that actually gives us the whole back. So I think if we play with
And
the
people
font.
could write comments on the back.
Or if you made these like two-line sentences, okay? And then you could have your entire graph here.
Yep.
So it looks like that. You can see from here, right?
If you're going to put this on the web, we could essentially make it a forms and collect the data electronically that way. And then we could have a form to fill out at school,
I see what you're saying.
and we could do a Likert scale for every single belief statement.
So we'd have a paper copy during the vote, and we'd have a digital one online that would be click, 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 and much quicker?
Yeah.
Beautiful. It would be great for us compiling it. It'd be a lot easier, so I'm very happy with that comment.
And
Mary Jo, Alexis was talking about pushing it out to students that way. It might be something she's already thinking.
I'll double check with her, but this would only
Yeah.
take about 10 minutes to put up on a form. So whatever changes you give to Cindy, I'll mimic in the forms.
All right.
It won't look identical because it'll be in a form, but in a survey, but.
And then that actually might be very nice because we could take what people feel on these and maybe just have someone in the office sit and click them in, and then it's all in one location for running reports.
And I guess just to clarify for everybody where that, sorry about my technical difficulties. Can you hear me now? Yes?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, those were really something we started at one of the very first meetings of the core team, and then really have revisited every meeting. The wordsmithing in there has been really rich, good conversation amongst the core team, making sure, trying to keep the intent. Now it's at the point where you just want other people, the way you read it, because the people that have been working on writing it. So that's really where it is in the process. It's not a final version of it. It's just that it's ready for people to have input on it, I guess. It's just to see where it is in the process, if I'm explaining that properly.
Feedback so we can refine it and get to a final document.
Yeah, yep. One of the other things that we need to talk about tonight is that we're entering that time of the year we need to be doing our board self-reflection, and board evaluation, and superintendent review. And so I had asked everybody if they could bring, I think we're going to need to, just because of the timeliness of it, I think we're going to have to try to run a work session to review that in June. It seems like something we would just be pushing our time.
If I heard you right, you said a work session in June to review the board evaluation, self-board evaluation?
Yes.
Yeah, it would be an executive session, so the work session would be an executive session, work session for the self-review.
Do you have a date in mind, Sharon?
I don't. I'm wondering. I think earlier in June is probably better. We have the board self-evaluation that the committee worked on. We believe we have that ready to go to everybody. And that Dave and Jane and myself worked on a few years ago. And Cindy's there. Cindy has offered to help us get out to everybody. I think if we had a couple of week turnaround and then met to talk about that, possibly that first week of June, but I'm not sure where everybody's calendars are, where everybody's at.
I would prefer the first week of June if that works, if that's not too quick of a turnaround for everyone.
I think earlier in June would be better also, and maybe if you want to send a few dates out to the board tomorrow, what works best, and there's different apps where people can click, this works, this doesn't work.
Yep, we can do that.
First week in June's good to me too.
All right, so then we'll get an email out to everybody and schedule that.
Just not the 3rd because that's the Pops concert.
Oh, okay.
We're having live music. It's so exciting.
I want to check to make sure that's in my calendar because I'm not used to having events.
Is the Pops concert open to everybody like normal, or is it just the parents of the students participating? Okay.
All right. Is there other board discussion and news worth sharing?
I have an item from Bill Track Alert. As people know, Erie County School Boards subscribes to Bill Track Alert, and anytime there's any movement of a bill, we get a Bill Track Alert. And there are several, and I don't know if any of them will get any traction, but for some reason, there are a lot more going to either committee or crossing houses than there have ever been. And so I have had them in the last couple of this weeks at ECASB, but there's a few that would, I think, impact school districts tremendously that people should keep an eye on and watch. And I'm just going to share those four. There's bill number S6599, and it was referred to the Education Committee, and there is a companion bill in the Assembly. And it basically authorizes BOCES to enroll students directly into their CTE programs instead of registering through their local districts. So I did reach out to BOCES to find out if they had heard anything. It's actually starting downstate, so I don't know what the issue is. And that, I think, would create a problem between BOCES and the home districts, because students could just call up BOCES and go, I want to be in the cosmetology program, and then they notify the school district with, scheduling and everything else. So that one, I'm very concerned about. Like I said, I don't know whether it's going to get any traction or not. There's another one that would definitely affect us. It's bill number A5443, so that's in the Assembly. And it would, and the action on it is print number 5443B. So whenever it says print, okay, that means there's already been some movement on it, and they've adjusted the language in it. But that requires the Commissioner of Education to promulgate rules and regulations to ensure that no public school uses a native name, logo, or mascot, defines terms, permits, and use of current materials and uniforms until September 1st, 2024. And it provides exemption for Native American tribes and makes related provisions. So that one would
Did you say you can't use them until 2024
No,
or 2024?
after 2024, you would not be able to.
Okay,
So
I just want to make sure I heard it
So
right.
that's one bill that we would definitely want to watch, especially if we were looking at, buying uniforms in 2022, and watch that bill.
Is that is it a special consideration because it's the name of our school district? Like changing the name of a school district is a big deal.
I don't know.
I mean, a big deal in that it's a big undertaking, not.
Yes.
Yes.
Let's word it as, it'll be an interesting endeavor.
Yes.
And I know there is one school district in Erie County that has a different legal school name than the school name that it's known as right now. So, and I'll share that later. Another one was very unique, okay, and I think it would have a huge impact, okay? And so I cannot see them moving this one forward because it would have a budget impact, but it's bill number A1201, and it would require so it's in the Assembly, would require school districts to provide educational and support services to students with disabilities until the students turn 23 years of age.
23?
23. Yeah, and then there's one, bill number 4942, which was referred to the Education Committee, and it relates to hunting, fishing, and outdoor education in high school phys ed classes. I thought that one was kind of unique. I don't know how you do hunting, but anyway.
I think that was funny. Hopefully it's not like dodgeball. I always got tagged out. And but We do have in here the trap, the rifle, and the sportsman club, so I would think it would be a lot like our sportsman club, where the people who run that talk about safety and different things that have to do with the hunting, trapping, fishing. They tend to talk more about the safety around bows, arrows,
Right.
different types of firearms, things like that, but they would be adding the other aspects of it. So that would be very interesting. Like fly fishing would be great to have people experience that.
And this one was another one, but this one was not referred to the Education Committee, but I'm just letting everyone know. And it's bill number 279, so it's in the Assembly. And the Assembly Health Committee has a hearing. Oh, actually, the hearing was today, and it relates to adult vaccination reporting requirements. So when you read the bill, okay, they wanted every adult 19 and older that gets vaccinated, that information has to be reported to either the county or the state within 14 days. It was very interesting. So I don't know how the hearing came out, okay, or whether that we'll see any more movement, but so I just wanted to share that with everyone. So watch your This Week at ECSB, because there's other ones on there too, but I'm not going to take the time to go through each of them right now.
And thank you, because there were definitely a couple in there for us to be aware of what's happening with them.
So in that vein,
Yes.
and the legislative committee through ECASB, someone mentioned a NISBA legislative advocate. And because Iroquois belongs to NISBA, we are entitled to have or to designate a board member as our legislative advocate through NISBA, and that gives us access to emails and special trainings and notifications, similar to what Dave just went over on legislation going through the state. And we have never done that. So it would be part of the organizational meeting, I believe. And, we can talk about it as a board if we want to do that or not, but it seems like, it would be a good idea, I think.
And on top of that, whoever is the voting delegate for NISBA, the voting will take place virtually, I believe, October 18th. And then they will have the results, and they'll actually share the information at the NISBA convention, which will be in person at the end of October in New York City.
Yes, and they also do provide training so that if you want to get involved in legislative advocacy, they help you do that.
So I guess my question is, as we prepare for the reorg meeting, is that something board members would like to see on there, that someone is nominated in that section for this position? I see a lot of heads shaking yes. I didn't catch yours, Gunnar and Sharon. Thank you. Got a great idea.
Other news worth sharing?
Yep. There is a free mini conference on May 19th about your school district's role in defeating uncivil discourse in our society. So if anybody's interested,
That's through NISBA.
That's through NISBA, yep. And it's complimentary. And it is 2 hours and 45 minutes of discussion. So that it'll be interesting, I think. I have more. Students participated, some art students from the high school participated in a congressionally sponsored art show a couple of weeks ago. Congressman Chris Jacobs sponsors this juried art, I don't know, show? Okay, competition. I guess it's just a show. And Iroquois had a large number of students represented. Their works were selected by the art teacher, and it was really a wonderful experience. Students from all over Erie or actually Congressman Jacobs' district, which is huge, had their works displayed, and they're incredibly talented. Unbelievable. So I don't think we had any mentions, but the works were pretty great. And they did notice that Iroquois had a lot of submissions, so that's pretty good.
The art department does very good at encouraging the children, getting them out there and their works. I mean, everyone sees in the calendar just a few of them. When that goes out, they're spectacular.
They were really excited because the art teachers did an amazing job framing their works. You know, normally they just have a canvas or whatever, and it was all framed, and it was hung in this really cool community art gallery in Batavia, and it was nice. It was nice, and the congressman was there, and so that was fun. And the high school play is currently being filmed, FYI. Yay. And so it will be live streamed, so everybody can watch it when it's done, and that's it.
One other item, the Western New York Law Conference is scheduled for August 10th and 12th, and we're doing, Erie County School Boards is doing that in conjunction with the Western New York Education Service Council. So there will be presenters from Hodgson Russ, Harris Beach, Webster Zani, as well as Erie 1 BOCES and Erie 2 BOCES, their legal departments. There will be 10 different workshops, and then the keynote speaker will be Jay Rona. And we're actually working with Erie 2 BOCES, so the entire program will be videotaped, and then you can go back and watch any of the sessions later. It will be in the morning both days, but if you can't make it, you can always watch it later. The cost is probably going to be about $100. The topics, we now have those narrowed down. We'll have collective bargaining, cybersecurity, employee discipline, social media, Ed Law 2D, special ed updates and updates in a post-COVID world, legalization of marijuana in schools, pandemic impact on personnel, SROs and student discipline, and diversity and inclusion. That's it. Yes.
Any other board discussion? Nope. All right. Those sound like great topics at our law conference. That sounds very interesting. And with that, we will move on to our superintendent's reports.
Thank you. The first thing I want to talk about is Aaron's Law, and I'll probably turn this over to Dr. Dudek, give a little greater detail on it, but what just recently happened is the guidance department came in, a couple members of that, and presented to the administration about this law and what we're going to be doing with it. Do you want to take over?
Sure. So Aaron's Law was passed in 2019, and it's a New York State law that requires public schools to teach about child sexual abuse and exploitation prevention to K-8 students, faculty, and parents. It is what Aaron's Law is named for the young woman who herself was sexually abused as a youngster, and she has worked her way through the nation to convince states of this very important role for schools. So this will be a slow rollout due to the nature of the content. We've had we've had a few counselors go to the Child Advocacy Center, but we have two in particular that went and were trained to be trainers so that they could come back and share with us. So what will be happening is they will first train the remaining student support staff, counselors, social workers. During the summer, teachers will have an opportunity to be trained, aides, and the teachers who are not able to be trained during the summer will use staff development days. And then they will also be offering parent information nights during this time. They are really going to be working on the planning this year for when they go into the classrooms, because they want to make certain, and they're working very, very closely with the Child Advocacy Center, who has a lot of experience in this, to ensure that the lessons for the students are age appropriate. So I just want to commend the two counselors that have put a lot of work in to this, Janice Cheney and Lou Aroni, and they've really have been very, very involved and want to do what's best for the students.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that's very important to move forward on that.
If I can add one thing, there is a bill that's kind of related to Aaron's Law that was sponsored by Mike Norris in the Assembly and Rob Ort. And it has not, it was just referred to the Education Committee or the Voting Committee, and it would not allow second and third class offenders to vote in any school. So if it's like a public election in a school, they can't go in and vote. If it's a school election, they can't go in and vote. They would have to vote by absentee ballots. And I don't think that's made any movement, but I thought that was another very good bill.
Yeah, I would applaud that one, because I know we only have the school vote here, but I know in other districts, they have all of their voting within the school district.
Right.
Moving on to New York State Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative. So just Monday, May 10th, the Regents approved the policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So the Regents today voted unanimously to adopt a policy statement that encourages every school board in the state to have a policy on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And their policy encourages, so that's why we really have to look at the word encourages. I think it's really not an encourage. I think it's a policy we will need to have. So don't misconstrue that word. And they have a quote: "A growing body of research finds that all students benefit when their schools implement strong diversity, equity, and inclusion policies and practices, including academic, cognitive, civil, social, emotional, and economic benefits," said the Regents Chancellor Young. And so when you start hearing these words, what do they mean by these words? You have to look at the different things. And the Regents said that they want I'm going to get in that next one. The Regents said that they want school boards to adopt policies that will promote schools to achieve a long list of goals, including recruit and retain diverse workers in all areas at all levels, implement non-discriminatory discipline policies and practices, develop students' ability to connect across lines of difference, elevate historically marginalized voices, and empower students as agents of social change. Eliminate the use of terms and phrases that perpetuate negative stereotypes and minimize student opportunities, and address the need for inclusive and culturally responsive teaching and learning as part of this work. Districts should consider specifically acknowledging the role that racism and bigotry has played and continue to play in American story. And I know some people jump to different statements or ideas in their mind based on social media. With this, just prior to the vote, Young said he wanted to distance the Regents' DEI policy, that's diversity, equity, inclusion policy statement, from critical race theory, meaning they're not connected. That's what he wanted. He said, "We recognize the role that race and racism play, and we recognize our obligation to remove barriers that have been obstacles for segments of New York State population." He also said, "But by no means are we proposing a race-based education system in New York State," because I know that's been a huge concern with that. So to give a little more idea of what it is and what the framework is, the framework recognizes there's no single isolated answer that will solve these pervasive problems. Rather, the approach must be holistic and inclusive. The Board of Regents, State Education Department, New York schools will be an integral part of the solution. So what are they looking to move forward with? Well, the framework outlines a comprehensive approach to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion, and here are the highlights of it. Dangers in teaching courses of study through only one perspective, so we'll give multiple perspectives of an area. The impact of systematic racism on students and society, the importance of looking beyond the data to discover and address the root cause for social issues, a myriad of benefits that accrue from providing students with social environments that are diverse, equitable, inclusive. The role of the Board of Regents, the Department of Education, and local school and districts is in promoting greater diversity, equity, inclusion, and suggest these elements of the district's diversity, equity, and inclusion policy. And with the last part, I thought this was probably the best statement. The Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Initiative is a multifaceted and comprehensive approach to create an ecosystem of success built on foundations of diversity, equity, inclusion foundation of diversity, equity, inclusion, access, opportunity, innovation, trust, respect, caring, relationship building, and so much more. Through this work, the board, department, and schools will examine and address the root cause of the persistent disparities that impact students and life outcomes. Further, the initiative aims to provide promote and perpetuate cultures, languages, and ways of knowing that have been devalued, suppressed by years of educational, social, political, economic neglect, and other forms of oppression. So really, it sounds like it really wants people to broaden their horizons, look at things from different perspectives, different views, not teaching people what to believe, but just giving them facts, ideas, and different perspectives so they can formulate their different ideas. So we're going to be looking at this, looking at the policy since it's new from the State Education Department. I will fully imagine the board will be getting some policies based on this from Erie One Policies. And from there, right now there are no curriculum changes that are being pushed down. It's just how we look and the lenses we look through things and how we're interacting. So any questions on that before I talk about a possible resolution? So with that, and I got to give credit to a neighboring town or neighboring school district. I won't say their name, although I want to give them credit because this is a good way, but I've always promised my peers I wouldn't highlight them, and you have a copy of this in your packet. And they put forth just a resolution. It's not a policy, anything. It's just kind of stating where they are, and I think it's done very well. It talks about the district is committed to providing every student a free and appropriate education with equitable access to opportunity, especially culturally diverse students who have historically faced discrimination. And I know we do that already here at Iroquois. Diverse backgrounds of the district residents, students, employees, and believes that such diversity provides educational opportunities. And, we attempt that here at Iroquois. The other one is, whereas the district's Board of Education is committed to seeing that no barrier exists, which is great because that's what education is about, allowing everyone in and having opportunity to having every student receive a free and appropriate education, an environment free of unlawful discrimination, and one in which diversity is appreciated and celebrated. And whereas ensuring successful education of all students is vital for preparing them to be productive and engaged citizens. Therefore, it be resolved, a school district is committed to providing students equitable access, opportunity, cultivating and maintaining learning environment that appreciates diversity, inclusion for all students, especially culturally diverse students who have historically faced discrimination in our nation. And the district's commitment to diversity, inclusion, equity calls for the district to both renew its efforts to ensure equitable, inclusive, diverse opportunities for all students and to reach their highest potential, and to promote a learning environment that embraces and celebrates our diversity as a strength for all districts. And why I think this is good is currently our vision is to be a premier educational institution, and to be a premier educational institution, all students in our community should have opportunities through us to excel and reach their whole potential. And be treated that way while they're here too. And therefore, I think this really sits along with a lot of beliefs we have here at Iroquois. Even at the committees, we've been looking at the core team of what they've been talking about. So really, I put that forward for the board to talk about, discuss, wordsmith it maybe a little bit, and then I would actually put it for, it's not as a policy, but just kind of a pledge that we want people at Iroquois to have opportunities, our districts, our students. Oh, I'm done. No, I like that. I'm done. Alarm. I get that at home too. He's done. Cut him off. For those at home, an alarm just went off in the audience, and we all giggled. So therefore, to look at it, because it's just stating that we care about the students, we care about all types of students. There are so many different groups that, even in our area, we need to celebrate and look at all the different things and make sure that they have access to what they need, which is really what we're all about too, having the student voice, student experience. And so I really equate it to that. Anyone have any questions on this? Comments, concerns, questions?
I think we do a really good job of this, and it's a great idea to look at the resolution and, as a board, decide what we want to do.
Yeah, kind of state where we are.
Yeah.
So I'd be looking to have this, why don't you take this, do the same thing? We'll give you a little longer than tomorrow. I'll be nicer than Cindy. And take the next week. If we could get this by June 1st of any little thing you'd want, we can discuss anything tonight, and then I would put that together and have it at our next June meeting.
You mean we can't just copy this district's homework?
If no one gives me any, that's why I brought it, because I thought it was very well done by the district. And so therefore, if no one makes a comment by June 1st, I'm going to pretty much replace this name with this name. It's not often I do that. I always like to, we would still have to vote on it next week. Yeah, you'd still have, or next month, next month.
Can we send a note to the district thanking them for the sharing the resolution also?
Definitely can send a note, or I could put a little thing in there just saying, I already had it written, why'd you take it before me? Definitely will send a note to the superintendent. All right, moving on to the next one, summer school. I'm going to turn it back over to Mary Jo to talk about, now notice the word on the first page, draft, because we're still finalizing it. I think our next step is we're going to be looking for teachers? Correct, so go ahead. I don't want to steal anything because I typically do that.
Okay. Before I begin with this, just to give you a preview of some of the classes for professional development, the catalog will be out around June 1st, but we are scheduling classes on executive function, anxiety. We're also doing a lot of curriculum work. So just to give you an idea of what will be coming in the PD catalog. This packet goes along with last month's conversation where we mentioned that we've been working on a summer school plan. And I want to thank Doug and John and the administrators, because we've sat down for the past few weeks and we've just kind of hashed out what our possibilities could be. I broke this up into 3 areas: primary, middle school, high school. And I'm going to begin with the primary because the middle school pretty much mimics the primary. When we sat down to discuss summer school, the main concern that we had was where our students are and where our students' families are as far as needing a break. We weren't able to travel for the past year, and really the summer is providing that first opportunity to go and visit places. So we wanted to be respectful of the time, commitment involved for our parents and our students. So what we did at the elementary level is we designed a 12-day program that runs in August. And so if you look at page 3, It would be beginning August 2nd and ending August 19th. A total of 12 days, and there would not be any sessions on a Friday. At the primary level, we'd be offering 2 sessions, 2.5-hour sessions. The first one, 8 to 10:30, and then the second one, 11:30 to 2. In the next page, we would be designing this program for those students who were experiencing learning loss. And so the eligibility would be really determined using our Ames Web, our iReady, our running records, but it would be decided by each building's data teams, because these teams are the ones who have been working with our students and their families for the entire year. On the next page, you'll see a draft, a draft instructional model. We would have 2 classes each for those kids entering grades 1 through 4. So we'd have a total of 8 classes. Each classroom would have a general education teacher. We would also look for RTI assistants by grade level. The capacity of the classrooms would be 15 students, and ELA and math would be taught in the 2.5-hour period. We would also have a session in between for snack, recess, and SEL. Going on to the next page, we were also discussing having a Tier 3 interventionist that would be separate from the classroom teacher. On page 7, our timeline is such that we would complete our survey and diagnostic assessments and hold our data team meetings. Each primary school would be allotted 10 spaces per grade level, and we would post for the positions. Actually, we're gonna put that out this week to really see and hopefully get a lot of teachers involved. And then parents would be notified in June of the opportunity. Any questions on the elementary or the primary?
Yeah, is there any flexibility between the buildings as far as the number of students? For instance, if you've only got 2 classes of a particular grade in one of the primaries, and they, can have 10, but there might be 3 classes in one of the other primaries with a greater need, can...
Yeah, well, what we'll do is the principals will be involved in this completely. And so if there is a specific need, or if it's really showing that one building might have a greater need than another, I'm certain that we would work together to ensure that the students were taken care of. It's just a ballpark figure to start with.
Yeah, great, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Is there for the students and drop off?
I'm sorry?
Will there be bus pickup and drop off for the students?
There will not, but what we're hoping to do is to house the classes on campus for the primary students, so that if parents wanted to make arrangements for the students to go to EMW afterwards, it would be easier for them to get there.
So a question about the session. Is it all day or morning sessions?
Well, let me do Michelle first, because I had her question first, then we'll talk to you, Louise. The Tri-Town Rec is now the EMW program. So therefore, it would be during that, so therefore they could attend the program, and then we could just walk them right over, or they could come and pick them up, because they actually use our facility, which is why we're thinking main campus. Which then would also help with Chuck's question, if there's more in one class than the other, they would all be housed, so then they could be shared and all work together. Louise, what was your question or comment?
Louise, your question was about sessions. There's an 8:30 to 10, or excuse me, an 8 to 10:30. The times are on page 5 of the presentation, session 1 would be from 8 to 9, and that would be ELA and reading. Then there is a 9 to 9:30 SEL, snack, recess, and then 9:30 to 10:30 would be mathematics. And then in session 2, it would be another group of students that would run 11:30 to 2 o'clock, but basically in that same time category.
Okay, so it is two different sets of students, so it's not like the kids will be going to school all day.
Correct. We
separate
wanted,
set.
we really wanted to avoid that. We wanted to be respectful of family time and summertime and address the need, but provide for, I think there's one way to address SEL is to allow kids to play. And they need that time to relax as well.
Very good.
I'm just going to make a plug for this whole thing, and especially when you're working with the EMW program, because that is also great for SEL and play, and they just have an amazing program. Are they swimming still? No, I don't know. Anyway.
Don't quote me on swimming. If they wanted to swim, we would let them. I don't remember.
No, I mean the EMW program. Not us, but like working in
No, that's what I mean.
conjunction
I
with
don't
the
know if the
EMW
EMW
program.
program has a swimming component of it. I know it used to with Tri-Town, because actually my students went to it.
Yeah.
Or my children went to it.
Yeah.
And I know my students here at Iroquois will often talk to me, hey, how's so-and-so doing of my children?
Yeah.
And it's great because they really form lifelong bonds in the
Yeah.
summer by going to programs like this.
Yeah. So I'm just thinking, like, it's really great to work in conjunction with them, and it could be, I mean, it's a great model, and, you know, going forward, you know, this learning loss for the past year and a half probably won't be resolved in 2 weeks, right?
Correct.
So, you know, as we're going forward, and I know the kids are going to go through school each year, of course, but, I mean, if we could make this a model, it would be amazing.
Yeah, and that's great, and that's where John, too, about, where he talked earlier in the budget about the federal, about being wise and using over multiple years, that we could have this so you keep making gains on everything each year.
Now, is this mandatory, or, because I know, like, I work 7 to 3, I wouldn't be able to drop anybody off to start at 8 o'clock.
No, it would not be mandatory.
It would not be mandatory, but that were, like, in your situation, they could partner with EMW, so therefore you could, I don't know what time they start, but you could have a drop-off there. Then they would join whichever session they're in, and they could spend the rest of the day there, and then you'd pick them up on the way home. And they would not only have instruction, but they would have fun with their peers with the EMW program.
So the middle school program, as I said before, mimics the elementary program as far as the dates and the times. This time we're looking to serve the students in going into grades 5 through 8. And the same set of criteria, because we're not bringing 3 schools together, the middle school would have, you know, a larger pool of students that they could, a larger number of students that they could ask. It's basically working out the same, but we're only dealing with one school.
So I'm hearing this really parallels the other one, except
Correct.
looking at 3 buildings, it's one.
So if you go forward to page 15, I want to cover the high school 9th grade academic and leadership program. And on that one, the building administrators at the high school really worked very hard on this. This is an 8-day camp covering ELA, math, and leadership skills. And this is to provide a stronger transition from middle school to the high school. So looking at the logistics, this one would be held August 9th through, oh, my draft is right over that.
Just really quick, because I might be on everyone's mind, how many students are we talking?
For the
The 8th to 9th.
8th to 9th, it has a max of 60. That's on page 19.
Oh, thank you.
But this one, as I said, is a total of 8 days from 8 to 11. And if you look at page 19, there is a draft schedule, period 1. And what they've done is taken those total of 60 students and broken them up into a group A, B, and C. And they would be running a schedule of a period 1 where they would either be involved in math, leadership, or ELA. At period 2 would be, they would switch and rotate. Period 3 is really a cool idea in that they have a student choice or a free time, a free period where the student could choose to participate with their friends in other activities such as art, projects, or ping pong, or something along that line, really to build the social emotional aspect of it. They are looking to involve older students to act as mentors, and the older students can earn their community service hours that way. And so then, let's see, moving on page 20, the leadership session, looking at collaboration, problem solving, time management, organization, and working with the peer mentors during that time. So that when the school year began, the 9th grade students already have built positive relationships with older students in the school. Are there any questions on that?
Thanks. Yeah, it's awesome. Have you talked about staffing? I think it's a great idea, and the dates are good because a lot of other districts are looking at summer schools, and I know that some are struggling to find people. So
That's why we're going out now to see numbers and what we can do,
well,
because
and
that is a concern.
this will be after a lot of them end,
Well,
so that's good.
the summer school, the traditional summer school will have ended
Yes.
by the time that this begins, but we are still concerned
Yes.
because just as the students and parents need a break, so do our teachers and our administrators.
Yes.
So what we're hoping to do is go out, see what the interest is, and if we need to modify this program, we will. But we're hoping that this is the way it will run.
Thank you very much for that. Thank you. Thank you for all your work on that, too, working together with administration. So moving right along, students returning update. I don't remember the date now because this whole year has been bringing kids back in and out and everywhere else, but we were able to bring K through 8th grade back a little bit ago, and that's going very well. You heard the students report today. They talked about it. The state, when people came back, did have some changed their practices on some because of going to 3 feet, which allowed us to get K through 8 back in, which has the masks are causing some frustration because we used to give mask breaks before, but the guidance was very clear about wearing that. The students did mention how the shields have been able to be modified with that, but we still provide them for people who need it. And really, how are we doing as a district with that? We sent out the daily reports, and this, so people can actually see it. And this Monday, I was able to announce that we'd had our first week of 0 cases of COVID for the week. I kind of feel like I jinxed myself because that day I had 1. So, but that's okay. 2 that Monday, yesterday. And that's where I really get back to people and saying, if you have signs or symptoms, don't contribute them to allergies or anything. We have protocols in place. Please still get them checked out because they're out there. COVID is still out there and people are getting it, but with the number of vaccinations that are happening and the doors and windows being open and everything taking its course, it's getting much, much better. With it getting better, did my thank you, check it home. With it getting better, high school. High school is still in the hybrid model, and the reason it is in the hybrid model is because part of the regulation states that in a 7-day period, you can't have more than 100 people per 100,000 with the transmission. So if you look at Erie County, because that's how we're being looked at by Erie County, I did ask if we could break it down by town. Currently, all the feedback I'm getting is no, I'm not making too much headway there. And I don't think it'll matter in a little bit because there's about 918,000 people in Erie County. That works out to about 131 new cases a month, blah, blah, blah. What does this really mean? It means every day now, I have Dr. Dudek looking and telling me the number of cases that are looking at to get this 100 per 100,000 so we could have high school students back. And right now, yesterday was 113, today it dropped to 109. And so I was at a meeting today with other superintendents, all the other superintendents in Erie County, and they're all looking at the same thing, and they're really the desire, the conversation was there's not that much longer in the school year, pros and cons of weighing where it is. And I got to admit, I go back and forth with having another transition, another change, impact on people, but really looking at it, how you end the year, do you end what you consider a win and being prepared for next year, having students be able to get together, what would you do with this? And where we've moved and what we have said to the public is that if we have the opportunity, we would be able to do it in 5 days. Actually, for the high school, they're already prepared. They already have all the desks 3 feet close to each other, so we'd be able to do that transition much, much quicker. I always challenge myself because I say, well, if this was 1 day before the end of the school year, would you do it with 1 day left? Well, no, that's dumb. Would you do it with 2 days left? So where is that line that you cross? And we're about 4 weeks right now out. And so I still think we're within that line, especially based on this conversation. Maybe. No, that's not including exam time, if I remember right, because students would end on the 16th. And so today's the 11th. So it's right about 4 weeks. If I have that right, I have to look at my calendar. That's for the high school.
So,
yep, go ahead.
So they are giving some Regents exams?
They are giving 4 Regents exams, yes.
And how are they being given? Do we know yet?
They would be in person here at school, and they would be the only people coming in, and they would be spread amongst the rooms, so there'd be greater distance between all of them.
Okay. So even if we were to come back and then the numbers skyrocket again, and then we go into a closed down situation.
That's a great question that we asked today. And really the feeling is once we come back, once you hit that 100, if you come back, the analogy was the toothpaste is out of the tube already, you wouldn't be putting it back in. I tend to be, I don't want to be cavalier because how much toothpaste came out would be a very, very big concern. What is a spike or anything? But all the metrics is that we're seeing in everything, and knock on wood, we've been doing well here at Iroquois for what we're watching, shows that probably won't happen with it. We've had the students back at the primaries and the middle schools, and we haven't seen any increases because of that. It's gone the other way, and that's paralleled with all the other school districts. We do have a huge advantage over them because we did put the ionization systems in our filtration, and when the windows open with that. So at this period, I'm really imagining that by the end of the week, we will hit the 100. Another week from now, I might be really questioning it. And like right now, you see me itching my leg, because you kind of get on the fence as you get closer, but we've done the surveys with the public. 93% wanted to bring their children back. I think if we did another survey in a week or two, that might change, basically saying, is it worth it at this point? They're being successful in doing well here. But then you also have to look at the student emotional aspect of still being separated and going through it versus the transition. And that was a lot of the conversation today of where it would be and how do they feel, and then how does this set you up for next year's success by how you ended this year?
Well, that's actually a question, maybe back to Mary Jo. We have summer programs in place for K through 8 now, 8 going into 9th.
Yeah.
The high school kids who maybe would like a refresher, or, I don't know, depending on how the Regents exam goes. Is there something in place for them?
So we have traditional summer school. There are no Regents exams in August. So it would be purely a refresher for the students. And it's 4.5 weeks before the end of the school year.
So maybe really it's not a traditional.
Well,
No.
not traditional in the fact that it ends in a Regents exam.
Okay.
And the Regents exam is a little different this year.
Correct. The students, every student who is eligible for the first time taking a Regents exam, not for the student who wants to retake, but anyone who is eligible for the Regents exam the first time will receive an exempt. But we are strongly encouraging our students to sit for the Regents exams because it is good practice for future exams. The students will not be penalized for the exam grade, and the counselors and the administrators will work with the families to ensure that the transcripts of those students are reported correctly so that it does not, if say a student is 95 out for the 4 quarters, but receives a 90 on the Regents exam, that's a great score. Maybe the student wants to put that on their transcript. The administrators and the counselors will be working with the families to ensure that that goes on the transcript.
Right. But another family might not want it on it, and it won't be on it.
So it doesn't have to be there.
Great question.
I have a question. Summer school program, unless someone else still wants to talk about the Regents exam.
Go ahead.
Are we going to take a survey as to find out how many people want to enroll their children? And are we going to have a proportion of it, or like a threshold as to, I'm not sure how many maximum children could be enrolled. Is there a threshold to say, okay, we were going to allow X amount of students, but we only got this many people interested? If only one person enrolls, would we go in with the summer school, or what would be that range to make it worthwhile or not to hold it?
So currently, we partner with Erie 2 BOCES for the high school, summer school, which is what we're talking about. And for that, we have typically never had a max. We actually also bring in students from East Aurora and Holland. I think sometimes I think it's Springville and Holland for that, not East Aurora. And there's a minimum number, I'll say around 5 to 7 that they have to run a class for the Erie 2 classes. But really, if students wanted to take it to refresh, that would be an opportunity there for them. The only question would come down to, as was asked earlier, will there be enough staff interested in doing work in the summer after the year of COVID that we've had? And it's actually housed here at Iroquois, which is very nice for us. All right, so that is, I don't know how we got there where I was. Oh, about bringing students back. There we are. So I'm thinking, I want to look at the numbers. I am hoping that I can make a special announcement sometime this week. Transportation's all set. I actually called over and I said, how much lead time do you need? He goes, you want me to take them home today? And so that's great. He's set to go. High school is ready to go. And so it's really, I've always told people I'd give them 5 days notice, but with where we are in the year, that length of time I might shrink down to be, to a Monday or something, because we're prepared. Fully understand that if it doesn't work for a family, I understand that, and they might start a day or two later. But we're also thinking with the high school, you don't have a lot of daycare situations like there might be a few, but we don't have the numbers that we had with the students that are 8th grade or younger. So we think that'll be it'll be easy with a quicker turnaround time.
Does the faculty think it's easy?
Dr. Ramirez has been going around and talking to them, and there are some that are have different feelings, but he's saying right now, majority of everyone he's talking is great. He said, like, one person he mentioned to says, great, hurry up, get them back here, and walked away. Very excited. So they're like all throughout this, there's a mixed emotions with it.
Yes, it's a lot of transitions for everybody.
And that's the part that just weighs heavy, because that transition, school districts don't like transition. When students change from one building to the next, that transition, there's always some regression that takes place.
But even just
this year, it's just peppered it.
Yeah, and sometimes, we think it's about measuring the classroom and having enough space.
Right.
But also, it's student records. Those teachers have their students in cohorts, and they track their grades in a certain way. And so there's a lot that goes into it. And I hope we're taking everything into consideration. So that's just my comment, that's all.
No,
I mean, everybody wants his kids back in school.
Yeah.
Everybody.
And I think your comment's very appropriate, because with this, you need to take everything in consideration, and just because one thing is bad or might cause a problem doesn't mean you don't do it. It means you do everything you can to support an individual in that situation. And that's what they're really looking at, having those conversations. I think they were very sad when we brought back the rest of them, that the high school couldn't come back. And it was unfortunate, but hopefully, I'm going to watch the numbers tomorrow, and if it drops down to, it's 109 now, and if the pattern keeps going the way it is, we might just say, hey, Monday we're going to do it, anticipating that 100.
Can I ask a question? Because just as Michelle said, everybody wants the kids back in school, especially our, we've kids graduating. To be back and to have end of the year would be great. On the flip side of that, is the health department doing anything to adjust that contact tracing 6 feet? Because when I'm thinking about all these special events that have planned, graduations, proms, picnics, all of these things that everybody's excited and are fun for our seniors and our high schoolers, and then with that 3 foot distance, you end up having so many more kids in quarantine.
So you were absolutely watching the meeting today, because that's the question they came up with. So if you look at our graduation date, because I think that's a big one, and where the prom is, and you count the number of days in between, the prom is 16th, and so that could be close. So we might have to move like graduation, if something was to happen with the seniors at the prom, to the other date on the 26th, which would give us the 10 days, because that would take care of all the quarantining and the isolation. And so that's where we're really looking at those dates and watching that. And that's why, again, I can't applaud the people enough for what they're doing because of the cases we've had here. I can't beg enough to say, really, for the month of June and everything that's going up, you have to watch it. We do have a time in there, so if something was to happen, unfortunately was to happen, but that's where you really have to watch your 6 foot spacing and so on. But in the classrooms you can't, but you look at it, if I was to have it, I'd have the person in front, behind, right and left that would be quarantined with me for 10 days. We'd all be out for 10 days. But in the high school, you go from room to room that way, so you would pick up if there's 5 classes that you take, because I think that's the requirement. 5 times 4, because there'd be 4 in each class, that's 20 students that are out. And that's a lot. So it's so important to keep practicing safe, just keep doing safe practices. I don't want to stutter over saying safe too many times. Smart, common sense, stand further away. You can see we're spread out more than 6 feet, but even with that, we take our precautions here. So we want to model what we're expecting and hope everyone follows the same thing. Pardon? Lunches are all set. We've looked at that because they do it exactly. Good thing the middle school is here, exactly what the middle school students said. Oh, go on to the next one? You gotta get an alarm. Sorry. We're going to have a slow roll. I'll hit these quick. A slow roll, like last year for the seniors. We're going to have a powder puff game. Right now, just the juniors and seniors. We're going to have the signs for the seniors, and we're expecting for graduation. We're hoping, we're anticipating, but we don't know if there will be different things for celebrations at the end of the year, which may change guidance. So if you guys want to come to, I think I put this on my Friday memo, if you're looking to come to graduation, we do have one person, Sharon, thank you, sitting on stage, providing a great speech, and the rest of you are more than welcome to sit with the graduates on the lawn. Moving on to the lunches, John, I'll do it for you. The lunch program is going to be over the summer. We're going to get that information out in a week or two, couple weeks, so people can sign up and do that. The lunch program is also going to be for all of next year, great from the federal government and state. Go, John. That was it?
You hit everything. That's,
All right.
that's
See, John's quick. I got a model after John.
Excuse me,
Yes.
I got a quick, is there a sign up if we want to attend the graduation as board members?
Yes, you will email Cindy.
And what's the date again?
The 25th with the rain date to 26th.
And that's a Saturday?
The 25th is a Friday night and the 26th is a Saturday.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And shameless, there's also a group of parents that are working really hard for Adopt a Senior and special end of the year things with that, and they've got fundraising things going on Facebook. So that's just a little commercial break for you.
Thank you. Obviously, I need it. I talk too much. ITAC, that's the next thing that's on the list because we already talked about the budget vote and the COVID protocols. They are sponsoring the slow roll, the lawn signs. They got us vision goggles and carts so people could experience the adverse affections of drinking and driving, so the new drivers understand the importance of not doing it. And they also purchased 7 Narcan wall units that'll be in all the nurses' offices and the middle and high school offices, just in case we ever need that. And last, probably my most favorite thing, I wish I could spend hours on this, but I won't tonight, the boys varsity basketball, student athletes and coaches, these are the teams. So the boys varsity basketball, 96.8, girls varsity basketball, 96.5, boys varsity volleyball, 94.6, girls varsity volleyball, 96.4, boys varsity ice hockey, 93.9, girls varsity ice hockey merged with Lancaster. I don't have their average, but they were up in the 90s too. And the varsity cheerleading had a 96.7. So congratulations to all the athletes for maintaining their grades while they participated. And I will be quiet now.
All right, moving on to recognition of guests. Are there any?
Yes, there's one. Oh, let me walk my mic over to Cindy.
Okay.
Karen Booker would like to speak regarding masks and mandates to students.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, my name is Taryn Booker, and I have 3 children at Iroquois currently. I just wanted to touch base on the mask policies while at school. As was touched on a little bit earlier, that, students had previously had shields while they were in school, and they were allowed to take off their masks while sitting behind their shields, which I was completely, for and understood masks were mandatory as far as, other times of the day. What I have an issue with, though, is that now that all of the students are back in the elementary schools and middle school, that there are no breaks allowed at all. And I have two sons that get in trouble pretty much every day because they keep their masks under their noses because they have a difficult time breathing, as anyone does, especially when they need to speak in class. I understand that everything that's been put in place is for safety. My biggest concern, though, is with the safety of students during gym and recess. This is where I have the biggest issue. Students are required to have a full face cover, even when they're outside. And quite honestly, if they're running right now, in Wales, I believe that they are going to be doing their running club that they normally do during gym. And if their faces are completely covered, I believe that that's setting them up for risk of hypoxia. In Colorado recently, there was a change of policy due to a student collapsing due to having their face completely covered while they were exercising. And I would hate for somebody in our school district to get a call from the nurse because their child passed out while they were participating in a mandatory part of the day. And I feel that that those that have concerns in regards to masks should have every right to wear them. However, those of us that have concerns in regards to wearing masks, especially during certain times of the day, should also have a choice for the safety of our own children as well. So I guess what I'm asking and how I feel is that as far as following policies, I understand the governor is handing down all of these policies. I don't feel that it is very fair that we are expected to follow these orders considering he is under investigation himself for poor or grave policy choices that he's had during this whole pandemic. I feel that I'm not the only one that feels this way in regards to masks. I know that there are several people that I personally know that were rooting me on coming tonight to speak about this. And I just feel that if we all kind of band together, we can make a change. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Sharon, we'll have an administrator get back to her about her comments.
Yeah, thank you. I know it. Sometimes I want to start and have a conversation about it and talk about those regulations, but we really do appreciate people coming and sharing that. And we will have somebody get back to you and touch base about that. But thank you for coming. Okay, moving on to number 9 on our agenda, discussion of agenda items 10.2 through 10.5.3.
Yeah, Sharon, I'd just like to congratulate Allison Genders on her retirement, very well deserved. I know she was always a favorite at the high school. My boys all had the good fortune of being serviced by Ms. Genders for any of their health needs. So congratulations to her, and also to our high school principal, Dean Ramirez, getting tenure.
Absolutely.
I have a question on the volunteer coaches. I know that we always, for just about every sport, have volunteer coaches. So what are the requirements that a volunteer coach has to go through?
I'll get a list and make sure I have it inclusive, but that's where we get them fingerprint and everything. I don't believe we have them do all the coaching courses.
With
guess, down the road, I would like to see maybe a coaching class that we as a district would prepare through maybe our athletic director with coaching philosophies for Iroquois so that any coach coming in, not only are they being supervised by a respective coach, but they're also under the, they also have the information on what we as a district expect and what our philosophy is in the sports area.
Are you talking all the volunteers or?
All the volunteers, yes.
Okay, all the volunteers. Okay, because I just heard coach and I wanted to make sure.
No, huh?
And coaches? I mean, should we have a whole?
I'll let the
Well, they
board
have,
decide that maybe at the summer
have-
work session or whatever.
yeah, well, all the
It's a big-
coaches have to go through philosophy courses and that, so maybe just an intake process for them, for the Iroquois philosophy, once they get hired. Like I do with every single board member when you get hired, I have a PowerPoint I go through and talk about different things.
Because I know, like, just as I was thinking about that this week, board members go through fort training for 6 hours.
Oh, you want to ask?
No, sorry.
So board members go through fort training for 6 hours, and board members go through governance training, even though we're all volunteers. And I'm just kind of wondering, like, what do the volunteer coaches, okay? And I think that's great that they are kind of following the guidelines for student teacher. But I also think that they should have a small session on what our philosophy as a district is, since they're working with our youth.
I think that makes sense, and so I'll talk to the athletic director about that, to move forward with that. I know she's put a lot of different things in there, doing well. Did you need any information getting back to you about anything else, or is that good?
No, I think that's good.
Okay.
Any other discussion on agenda items? Okay, then moving on to our consensus agenda. Is there a request to withdraw specific items from the agenda? Is there any request to add a specific item to the agenda? I would request a motion to approve consensus agenda items 10.2 through 10.5.3.
So move, Dave.
Second, Jane.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Noes? Okay. And that brings us to recognition of guests regarding any topic. No. And so then I would need a motion to go into executive session for the purpose of discussing contract negotiations.
So moved, Jane.
Second, Dave.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Noes? All right, so we've been moving into executive session. We will return only for the purpose of adjourning the meeting, right?
Can you hear me at home?
Unmute your speaker.
Hello? They can hear me. No, it's all different.
On up. That's great now.
Was that a go, Tate? All right, Sharon, we're all set. Live to you.
All right. And so I'd like a motion to adjourn our meeting, please.
So moved, Chuck.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have
Thank
a great
you,
night,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.